like to start with a quote. Zig Ziglar is a renowned American motivational speaker, author, and salesman. Possibly some of you have heard of him. He said this: every sale has five basic obstacles: no need, no money, no hurry, no desire, and no trust. And the sale begins when the customer says no. And your ability to speak persuasively is what turns every one of these obstacles into an opportunity. So I'd like to start with that and talk about this. The title of this is, and by the way, I don't have any slides except one at the end. And I will ask you for an evaluation at the end. There's a little QR code. I assume everybody has one of these. And there's a little gift for you at the end of that. So this is about turning curious listeners into ready investors, ready buyers, ready clients. So the first thing I like to do is to say that speaking, more than anything else, more than any marketing you can do, is a business accelerator. Most of you probably know that trust is the currency of opportunity. People rarely buy from a logo, a website, or an advertisement. They buy from someone they believe understands their problem. And that really is the key to getting investors or clients. And speaking actually accelerates this trust. When someone hears you explain an idea clearly, they are performing a mental test and they're asking themselves a question. Does this person know what they are talking about? And you're doing the same thing right now with me, which is fine. A single presentation can accomplish what months of marketing attempts to do. And in a matter of minutes, a speaker can demonstrate expertise, deep understanding of the subject, authenticity, a real human voice behind the ideas, and confidence, a calm command of the topic. When people hear you speak clearly about a problem they care about, something really powerful happens. You stop looking like a vendor and you start looking like an authority. In short, speaking compresses the trust building process. Now, how does speaking build this trust faster than traditional marketing? Well, first of all, what is traditional marketing? It's advertising, it's email. Let me use my other finger hand. Email campaigns, social media, and websites. By the way, if anybody came in late, feel free to ask a question when it comes up right during this presentation. These tools are useful, but they share a common limitation. Does anybody have an idea what the common limitation is? Again, advertising, email, social media, and websites. And that was not a rhetorical question. What do you think the common limitation is? Anybody in the group here? Okay, I'll tell you what it is. They're one-dimensional. Okay, they're one-dimensional. The audience reads or watches, but they cannot fully evaluate the person behind the message. And that's the problem with traditional marketing. Speakers change that. When people hear a speaker explain ideas live, they experience several trust signals simultaneously. Number one, they have visible expertise. The audience watches how clearly the speaker explains the complex ideas. Authenticity. It's been proven that voice tone and body language are well above 70%, 80% of communication. So people get cues from you as you're speaking. So the voice tone, the body language, and your delivery reveal whether you as a speaker genuinely understand the subject. It's as simple as that. And then credibility through interaction, the questions that you have from the audience. You'll be asking me questions, and my ability to demonstrate the depth of the knowledge in this subject will indicate to you whether I can be trusted with this topic in real time. And people naturally ask themselves three questions. Number one, can this person solve my problems? Number two, do they understand my situation? And that's key when you're trying to sell something to someone else. And number four, would I trust them to help me? If you don't understand what the problem is with the customer, then you're not going to sell to them. It's as simple as that. So a discovery call and maybe a discovery meeting, probably a discovery meeting, is where you find out more about their business. And a lot of times clients will tell you they have X, Y, and Z problems, and those may be just symptoms of the problem. Where if you can discover the problem and solve the problem, you take care of a number of those symptoms. Okay. So presentations allow audiences to answer those questions immediately. There's also an additional benefit and what I call borrowed credibility. When a respectful conference organization or host invites you to speak, the audience subconsciously assumes this. If this organization invited them, they must know what they're talking about. That credibility transfers instantly to the speaker. And if you are a speaker, do what I did for this particular talk. Write your own introduction and give it to someone else to say. It's sort of like when you go to Amazon.com, or I assume you have something like this in the UK, you order things online and you see reviews of people. People, you want to see whether someone else has used this service, this product, and what was their experience. And that's really important. So Gary giving my introduction tells you a little subconsciously that I know what I'm talking about. I have the background to talk about it. So that's really, really important. So now let's talk about why founders who communicate clearly stand out in crowded markets. In many industries, products and services begin to look similar. So how are you going to discriminate yourself from your competitors? Your competitors offer similar features, prices, and promises. When that happens, the real differentiator is communication. Your ability through the spoken word, through your voice, your body language, and the actual words that you speak to convince your clients to buy from you. Founders who can explain complex ideas clearly appear more knowledgeable, more confident, and more trustworthy. It's as simple as that. In fact, clarity is rare, and rarity attracts attention. A lot of times, businesses think they have to just include so much in their offer to their clients. And that's basically dead wrong because the clients get too overwhelmed. People that are overwhelmed don't make a decision to buy. That's really important. Audiences remember the speaker who makes difficult ideas easy to understand. Clear communicators help their audiences see three things. One is the problem. What is actually happening? What is going wrong? Why should anyone care? The consequences. Number two, what happens if nothing changes? Okay, will we keep losing people? Will we keep not, losing clients, so on and so forth, lost revenue, operational risk, missed opportunities. And then the third thing is the opportunity. What becomes possible if you can convince the client, the buyer, the investor that you can solve their problem, or at least solve other people's problem that you're worth investing in? Efficiency, growth, competitive advantage. When a founder explains these three elements clearly, they really shift the risk because investors are worried about the risk. They want to get more money out eventually than they put in, obviously. When a founder explains, well, they are no longer simply selling something. They become the guide who understands the problem and knows the path forward. Remember, as a business owner, as a startup, you are simply the guide. The hero of this story is your client. Never assume the hero's position. The hero is your client. They have a problem, they have a conflict of some sort, and you're there to solve that conflict and show them the way to the promised land, so to speak. Okay. All right. Now, how do we turn talks and presentations into real business opportunities? Well, a strong presentation should accomplish two goals. They should educate your client, your audience, your investor. They should create, and second, they should create opportunities for future business conversations. I'm sure you've heard the statistic that it takes 7 to 10 times, and you can argue about the number, but it's around that, the effort to create a new customer that it is to keep a current customer. So we're not only interested in a one-off sale or a one-off investor. We're interested in follow-on investment and follow-on sales from the same clients. Okay, that's really, really important. And the process really begins with relevance. And you do this by starting to describe a problem your audience or your client immediately recognizes. Clarity is where the discrimination is. And that's a rarity because people usually try, or businesses usually try to kind of like steamroll clients. And that is the exact wrong thing to do. Make it as simple as possible. But the first thing you have to do, and I tell my clients when I consult with them about presentations, you need to know your audience before you put together any slide or any notes. Who is your audience? Who are their demographics and your clients too? What is your client's business? What traditionally are the problems they have in their business? So on and so forth. You really need to know that so that you can have a kind of a palette to choose from as far as solutions to their problems. So start by describing the problem, but you have to ask a lot of questions before you do that because you have to understand what the business is. But start describing the problem your audience immediately recognizes. Sometimes they deal with regularly. It's got to be something they deal with regularly and something that costs them time or money or opportunity. They feel like they're trapped and they can't get out. And what you need to do is find the key to the trap and release them. So highlight the consequences. I mentioned lost revenue, increased operational cost, inefficiency, and wasted resources. When audiences see the true cost of the problem, they become attentive because it's dollars and cents. I mean, what are they in business for? Obviously, a desire to do what they're doing, but they want to earn money, and they won't be in business very long if they don't. After all, businesses have to take in more than they put out as far as funds, as far as money goes. I remember I was with the government actually as a contractor for a long time. I think the US government and possibly the UK government has this issue too. There's no way to say success. There's no way to determine success. There's not a good metric for that. In a entity like a contractor, there is, or a company, because you have to earn more money than you put out, right? So the presentation itself does not sell. However, it creates curiosity and credibility, which naturally leads to conversations afterward. So selling to a client or getting an investor to invest in your business is not a one-time deal. You need to convince them that you're knowledgeable, that you have credibility, and that you can solve the problem. Now let's we're towards the end here, structuring presentations that lead to buyers. Effective talks often follow a simple and reliable framework. And this is simple, and probably a 7-year-old can understand this, and I'm sure you guys can understand this. It's a four-step problem, a four-step structure. First, what is the problem? Okay, clearly describe the challenge your audience faces. If the client or the investor doesn't understand what problem they're trying to solve, then you're not going to sell to them. Use specific examples that mirror their real world examples. If you have a solution and it's worked before, tell them the story. Stories are very powerful. I assume everybody has Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or whatever, or you at least go to the movies. Everyone loves a story. I don't care if you're an engineer or a dental hygienist or whomever, a business person. Everyone loves a story, and stories illustrate your point better than you can just by saying words. Okay. So when the audience thinks, yes, that's exactly what we deal with, you have their attention. So you need to get their attention first. Then you need to provide insight, offer a new perspective, explain why the problem exists or why common solutions fail. Quite often, people on the inside can't see, you might have heard the expression, you can't see the forest for the trees. People from the outside can look in objectively. There's no dog in the fight other than getting the business. But if that business fails, it's not gonna fail you, type thing, their business. So that's really important. Insight creates intellectual value, and it positions the speaker as someone who sees the issue differently. Solution, that's the third part. So problem, insight, solution. Present a practical and understandable approach on how to solve their problem. Break the solution into clear steps or principles. I assume everybody's here is a startup. What are you trying to solve? If you can answer that question in as a startup, you need to go back to the drawing board and talk to some people in your group or other people that can tell you what are you trying to solve. Okay. Break the solution into clear or divide the solution into clear steps or principles. The goal is not overwhelming detail, as I mentioned before. It's clarity. People yearn clarity. They don't yearn 16 books that you can send them or 5 courses you can give them or even a workshop. But a workshop may work, but they want clarity to begin with. Okay. And then the next step is to invite your audience, could be client, could be an investor, to continue the conversation. This could be a discussion afterwards, a resource you may send them. It could be a workshop. It could be another consultation, but every time you interact with the client or an investor, it has to have a clear objective, or a clear agenda, so that you know where you're going, that you both agree on, type thing. This framework of problem, insight, solution, and next step keeps the talk educational and valuable while naturally opening the door to business relationships. So, excellent speaking changes how audiences perceive a business leader. Instead of seeing another vendor in a crowded market, they begin to see a knowledgeable advisor. Okay. Some of you may be investors in the stock market or whatever. I always get an advisor because I'm not a financial person. I would never think of investing without an advisor. I've had an advisor for probably over 25 years now, I think. So that's really important. Trust changes the audience journey. No one ever buys from someone else without trusting that other person. And it's your job to get them to trust you. Okay. People move from curious listeners to interested prospects to ready buyers. When founders communicate clearly, several things happen simultaneously. You demonstrate expertise, you build credibility quickly, and you attract opportunities naturally. Great speakers understand something important. They don't chase their clients. Instead, they create clarity and trust. And when that happens, clients seek them out. Yeah, I wanted to get to a last quote from Brian Tracy. Some of you may have heard of him. He says, the ability to close the deal is the single most important skill in selling. Everything else leads to that moment. Okay. I'm going to share my last slide. Let's see here. Okay, share. Okay, that is who I am. In case you're wondering how to spell my name, maybe you're not. Frank DiBartolomeo, that's my email, and also my website, speakleadandsucceed.com, and my phone number. And the little QR code, if you have a phone and you want to get a free gift, just fill out the evaluation. And that's the way that goes. So does anyone have any questions? Hope I was about the right time, Justin. Go ahead. Max, is that you?
Yes, hello there. Thank you very
Yeah, how are
much,
you doing?
Frank,
Oh, you're welcome.
for the great talk. I am currently studying as an engineering student, and I was
Oh,
just interested in how I would convey technical knowledge and technical data to non-technical customers.
well, I tell you what, I write a newsletter every week on public speaking. I was I've since June of 2019, pre-COVID. One of my recent ones, go to Speak, Lead, and Succeed. This is all free. Go to speakleadandsucceed.com and go to articles. And you can, I think it's recent, like within the last three or four, but it's searchable. And you can just search on complexity, that type of thing. So that's one thing. But I'll
Thank you.
tell you right now, I'm going to answer your question. Number one, know who your audience is. I keep harping on that, but know who your audience is. Know what their expertise is in your area. Know what they're looking for, and I'll tell you how I do that. I, of course, have slides during any of my presentations, but if it's a live presentation, I get there at least an hour before. I've a few days before I've checked out all the audio and video stuff. So I get there an hour before, and I walk in, and let's say Max Ballard walks into the room. I'll say, "Hi, I'm Frank. What's your name?" Okay, it worked in kindergarten. It works in presentations too. And then I ask two questions. I ask, what is the biggest frustration you have in my topic today? So yours may be, how do I know what to put on my slides? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Okay.
Yes,
And then the
yes.
second question is, what would make this presentation successful for you? And I squirrel that away because I have slides. But if I have some slides that don't really answer your question, I'm going to blow past those slides, okay? Because it's not answering your question. If it's live, I also have two easels on the stage or in the front of the room. And I appoint somebody, maybe Max, maybe Peter, maybe Justin or Giotto. Giotti, is that how you say that? I think it is. Okay. Um, anyway, is that how you say your name? Jyoti? Oops, she took it off. We'll move on. So anyway, so then, oh, hi, how you doing? And then I appoint somebody from the crowd. It may be Max, it may be Peter, it may be one of you. And but you have to have good handwriting. Even though I went to Catholic school, my handwriting isn't that great. So then I asked the crowd the same question because when I introduce myself to people, I may get to 20, 30% of the crowd. But I want to know what everybody thinks. So I asked them the same two questions. And out the top of the first easel is the first question. What is the biggest frustration about this topic? The second one has what would make this 100% successful for you today? Okay, now I'm going to answer your question. Sorry for that long prelude there.
No worries. Thank you.
Number one, never have anything on your slide that you are not going to explain. As an engineer, I was an engineer for 44 years. I gave a lot of terrible presentations, and I gave a lot of good ones. But the good ones always started again with knowing your audience. And I made sure there was nothing on it. If there's a graph that you're not going to talk about, then take it off the slide. The slides purely are a support for you. In fact, you are the presentation. You want the audience just focused, laser focused on you. Okay. So you need to take everything off. I sometimes use animation. Sometimes people don't like that, but you don't want them looking at a part of your slide that doesn't concern what you're talking about at the time. Okay. Remember, you are the presentation, you are the message. It's not your slides. By the way, if you ever want to blank out a slide, maybe somebody asks a question, you want to blank out a slide so the focus is on you, hit the B key on your keyboard. And I think it works for Macs and PCs. So that's an added thing. Hopefully that added something about your question. Basically, take out the kitchen sink and everything else in your slide that doesn't apply to what you're saying at the time. Okay,
Wow. Thank you so much.
great. I also want to, before the next question, I want to point out one important book. I also already said that you may want to look at, and hopefully you can see it. It's called Persuasion: The Psychology of Persuasion. It's by Robert Cialdini. It's let me Cialdini. He's written the book on persuasion. And when you're a presenter, you are a persuader. Okay, so just wanted to point that out. He has some other books, but the persuasion book is the first one to start from. Um, I also have a book in my, it's probably up on my screen now. Uh, the one that I wrote, Speak Well and Prosper, Tips, Tools, and Techniques for better presentations. And I think it's a great book. If you're looking for a book with a lot of dense type and a lot of complication, don't buy it because it's a lot of stories. In fact, if anybody wants to know how I wrote the book, it wasn't that hard. The key is those newsletters every week. So anyway, but any other questions anybody has? Yes, Jyoti, did I say that correctly?
It's $15.
No, she's trying to take off her mute there. Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry. Please go ahead. Oh, can't answer your question. Why don't you put it in the chat and then Gary, if you can tell me what the question is, then I'll answer it. Any other questions that anybody else has? Okay. I also have a podcast, Successful Speaking for Technical Professionals. So if anybody wants to look that up on Apple Podcasts. Any other questions that anybody has? Let me make sure that my audio is on the right let's see.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I
I've
hear.
got, I've got
Okay.
in the from Jyoti is I'm
Okay.
talking about a topic that is interesting for her.
Okay.
But how do I keep my audience engaged? Virtually, how to keep the interest going.
Well, it's not simple, but it is very clear. You need to involve the audience right away. One of the reasons why I have those two flip chart stands with flip chart paper asking those two questions is to involve the audience. And if you're on a virtual call, you can do it in the chat. So there's a way to do that. Always ask your audience questions throughout your presentation. I didn't do that so much today, but you want, because those questions, and a lot of people fear questions. I am ravenous for questions, and I'll tell you why. They give you great feedback. Another guy that in the annals of management and leadership, a guy named, shoot, miss his name now. Okay, that's what happens when you have gray hair sometimes. You have a senior moment. But anyway, he wrote a book called One Minute Manager. And in the book, I'll remember what his name is. He said, uh, feedback is the breakfast of champions. So now I don't suggest you get feedback from your dog, but having a practice audience is really, really important because they can ask you that. I'm not sure if I asked the question. Ask that question again, Gary, please.
The
How do
question
you
was, how do
how do
you
you
keep them
interact with the
interested?
audience? Okay. It depends on how long your presentation is. Now, I only have a half an hour. I'm in the 29th minute right now. Tell me when to get off, Gary. But I think I'm at the end of my time, but I'll answer this question. If it's a half an hour like this, you can't have much interaction other than asking the audience questions. But if you have like an hour or an hour and a half, I'm giving a presentation, actually a workshop. So I have workshop exercises that I'm going to be having people do during the presentation or during the workshop. So exercises that the audience can do, small groups, give them a question, and then have them brief out. Make sure you have them brief out because people discussing things want to talk about those things. So hopefully that. But there's a couple of books that you may want to pick up. They're called Games Trainers Play. Games Trainers Play. There's a part one and a part two to that. And those have all sorts of different activities for audiences. So hopefully that answered your question, Jyoti. Give me a thumbs up if it did. Thanks. Okay. Any other questions? If you have a 30-minute presentation, make sure you practice to have it done at 20 minutes. And always ask the audience for questions during your presentation. And let me tell you why that's important. When you're mentioning something that piques an interest or a question in someone, the context has already been set up because you're talking about it. So when the person asks the question, then it's like a hand in a glove. Okay. You wait till the end. This is what happens. People say, well, there's not time for the question, or they forget the question, or whatever. You won't get all the questions from the audience and they won't feel like they've gotten more fulfillment. So I always take questions during my presentations. If it looks like I'm going to be late, which I am by 2 minutes now, I will say, can you see me after I'll stay on Zoom, or see me after the a session if it's an in-person session. I never, or I say, if they have a question I don't ask or I don't know the answer to, and I'll tell you how to know the answer to every question in a second. Then I say, I will get you at the break, give me your email, and I will get an answer to you within 24 hours. And the way you know the question to every answer is during your practice, you practice basically 4 ways. You practice by yourself sitting down at your computer. You practice standing up by your computer. You practice in front of a mirror. That's really scary because you get to see who all the different ticks and the moving back and forth and all that kind of distracting stuff. And then you get a practice audience, even if it's only 2 people. It can't be your dog, just as long as it's 2 people or many, and ask them to just ram you with questions. Just ram you with questions, and have somebody be a scribe as to what those questions are. And then you can take those questions back and then form cogent answers to all of them. It's very rare, and it's not that I'm perfect. Of course, I'm not perfect, but I've practiced enough and I've got enough of these questions. And it's very rare I get a question. It does happen sometimes, but it's very rare I get a question during one of my presentations, only because I practiced, which you all can do. So it's not a magic formula. It is a performance, but it's a performance of what you know. It's a performance of you. Be happy to answer any questions unless you don't have time, Gary. It's up to you.
No, that's all good. Was there any more questions or no? I think we're all done, Frank. Just like to say thank you very much. I think Frank's been
Oh,
great,
oh,
and
you're welcome.
we'll put some stuff out on LinkedIn. Obviously, we'll get this out on video as well, and I'll share the
Oh,
video with you afterwards
you're
as well.
welcome,
Yeah,
Jody.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you very
great.
much, everyone, and have a
Yeah.
great weekend. Yeah.